How to mix it up and how to get the most out of your movements. We're going to look at the kettlebell goblet squats. Now, the goblet squat is something that gets used a lot in our sessions. It's something that we really like doing. It's a pretty safe movement. Once people have comprehended and got the right movement patterns with the basic bodyweight squat, we then progress often to a goblet squat, kettlebells, and these are things that a lot of people have got at home and invested into. So we're just going to show you a couple of things you can be doing to change it up. Now, this isn't just for goblet squats, okay? This can be done with many different movements. We're going to talk about how we can change up some of the stimulus with it. Now, Rob's going to perform a regular bodyweight kettlebell goblet squat now, and as he goes into that, we've talked about creating tension in previous videos and how to do that movement correctly. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the technique side of the goblet squat. As you can see there, he keeps a nice controlled tempo. So now the tempo being obviously the speed of which he's moving at. That is one of the variants and one of the things we can do to change the stimuli. Now, if I was to get Rob to do a goblet squat and say I wanted a 4-second eccentric or negative, okay, he'd be going 4, 3, 2, 1 and drive up. Now that changes the movement. Now the weight hasn't changed. Often people are looking to shift and change weight all the time. Now it may not be a possibility with low to minimal equipment, okay, you might be doing it at home. So how can we make sure we change and get an adaptation? Well, slowing down the eccentric is a really hard thing to do, getting lots of tension. Another way of doing this is we go down and say a regular tempo squat, so he goes down controlled, pause, 2, 3, 4 maybe, and drive up. It might be a 2-second, 3-second, 4-second, 10-second pause, okay? Driving down, having to really secure and maintain that stability at the bottom of the movement. Once again, keeping pressure in a different range of the movement. So he's at the bottom part of the squat here, and he's having to hold, creating tension, not just relaxing, not rounding off of that upper back, but holding tension all the way through. So pauses are really nice things to do. Obviously, you can combine the two. I'm not going to be nasty and do that to Rob now. Another one we can do is actually you'll see people do partial reps in the gym. Well, actually, if we can do a full range and bring in a partial also, I like to call this a 1.5 squat. As you go all the way down, you come up halfway, back down again, and then drive up. So it's a 1.5 squat. So you're only working through a partial range of the movement on the way up on the second as such. To get a full rep, it's up, half, back down, and driving through. We can do things like pulses. Once again, be quiet. You've got to be secure and comfortable in your movements. At the bottom now, he's just pulsing through. So you see, coming up a few inches, trying to keep under tension now. These are really nice little finishers. We'll often bring them into some of the conditioning classes. It's a real burner, get under a lot of metabolic stress throughout this, and Rob's probably already feeling this. Say this isn't a hugely heavy weight, maybe for Rob himself, someone who can maybe back squat crazy, but it doesn't have to be, and it just shows we can get a lot out of the movements. If you stand up there, Rob, okay? So there are a few different ways of changing up through different tempos, ranges of movements, pauses. They're great things to do, but also the way in which we load the kettlebell. So if you're performing a regular goblet squat, so holding it in nice and tight and going down maybe 2 to 3 seconds, not pausing at the bottom, driving up. We can also just change that by the way in which we hold the kettlebell. So if we now single side hold it, so front rack on the single side, Rob's now holding this on one side, and as you can see, he's going to have to what we call supercompensate on one side here on his obliques, because otherwise they'll end up twisting, torquing, turning. Keeping it nicely racked, as you can see there, he's almost cradling it in here. He's not holding it out wide and high out here, which can cause obviously a lot of uncomfortable shoulder pain and things going throughout there. He's keeping it nice and centralized and secure, because we're not focusing on trying to build shoulder strength here, but it's nice and secure, okay? If you put 2 hands on, it does make it a bit easier, okay? So if we remove that hand, it gets that load. He has to really focus now on that trunk side, okay? Drawing in, keeping it nice tension. As he controls down now, as you'll see naturally, he puts his arm out, okay, because it's a nice counterbalance in doing so, but he's keeping that form, but we're putting the load into a different way now. So once we're doing it, okay, working that single-sided load can really help change up. Now, obviously, you can do one side, then the other, working through. Now, you can also change it up by bringing it back centrally and doing what we call a bottoms up squat. Now, this is one of my favorite movements. The way in which we do this, and a couple of little tweaks I'll always get people to do is, you get the elbows in nice and tight, almost arm out straight, and then the slight change of the hands sliding down right to the bottom of the handles. Now, by doing that, it makes this kettlebell more unstable. Now, somebody who's really, if I wanted to challenge them, I could actually move this whilst they were squatting if I was to be really tough and horrible, but holding in there straight away really lights up that midsection. As you can see now, there's a lot more focus and tension there. By having the arms out nice and in front of them at that 90 degrees there, sitting down, keeping the core tight, really changes where the load is. Obviously, from it not being that central part of the body, that core stability there is now being challenged because the weight is actually further away from our center of mass. Okay, so holding that away really mixes it up. But say holding it low, okay, by just even that slight movement can really challenge somebody. And you see I'm barely moving it, but he will be working super hard from me being a little bit of a pain there. So relax that there. Bottoms up squat there. So you can obviously single-side racket there, okay? If you're very advanced, you might go to a single arm overhead. We're not gonna do that right now, okay? But it's something that you can really work on progressing through with just having the same weight, but creating a lot of different movements within a movement.